Welcome to episode 9 of Create This Book by Mariah Elizabeth and Ashleigh Monet. That would be me. As always, the link to the playlist that contains all of my Create This Book videos will be found in the description. We have 4 prompts to tackle this week, so enough of me talking. Let's jump right in and see what I can create. Alrighty, this week our first prompt is create obscure shapes. Fill this page with unusual shapes.
Rule: do not add anything recognizable to this page. Make it purely abstract.
Let's start by taping off the edges and laying down a nice background. I was thinking abstract, out of this world. Let's go with an outer space theme. I'm using some purples, some blacks, some blues, kind of galaxy, you know? Pulled up the tape and then had to fix a couple of breaches. And here entereth yet another Pinterest-inspired Zentangle. My thought is that when it comes to making unrecognizable shapes, they pretty much have to be blobs. With this Zentangle, you draw these kind of splat-shaped blobs all over using very thick lines. Then with thinner lines, you go through and add a bunch of micro-splat blobs in between the larger ones. The Pinterest example of this used black marker on a white background. I figured black wouldn't really show up on this background, so I opted to use white. But the effect really wasn't translating in white, so I went back through and covered up the small splats with black. The only bummer there was how thick those splats ended up being now. That's not the vibe. They're supposed to be thin as opposed to the big ones. I don't know, in an effort to save it, I decided to move forward using thin lines for the rest of the splats on the page, then went back through and thickened a few splats around the edges only, trying to make this look like it was a conscious style choice and not an unfortunate error. Next, I decided to give the large splat blobs a little extra something by tracing the borders with a silver gel pen. Ooh la la, if you haven't realized by now, I do so love the shimmer. So here we are with our obscure shapes. They look all right, I just wish I could add something more. But we're not allowed to add anything recognizable. Wait, do not add anything recognizable to this page. This page. The prompt didn't say anything about this page. So I guess I can add whatever I want there. Loophole! With the background being so dark, I didn't want to do a million coats of paint, so I used my white Posca to lay down a base for my little character here. I'm sure with just this silhouette, you probably are able to tell what I'm making. Sí, es un gatito! With the base dry, I decided to paint him a nice yellowy orange to contrast that background color. Touch up the white, and then we have to embrace the outer space theme and give this little guy a shiny astronaut helmet. And surround him with a few twinkling stars. I thought the helmet was a great opportunity to add more shimmery silver gel pen too. And for the cherry on top, let's hit it with a little micron to define these features. Little space cat needs some crazy eyes. You know he's not having fun out there. With that, this one's all done. I enjoyed the blob splat Zentangle. It definitely could have gone a little smoother, but we were able to bounce back from that. Recover from our mishaps, and I think it came together looking all right. Throw in crazy little space cat, and it's a win for me. I love him. Okay, next prompt. Create boredom. Make this page boring. I can't say that I was terribly excited for this prompt. I'm sure you can understand why. I searched the depths of my mind for the most boring situation I could possibly imagine. I pictured walking into a room, an empty white room. No windows, no pictures on the walls, and all that's in the room is a chair. Not a fancy chair, just a plain old boring wooden chair. I imagined sitting in that awful chair, staring at nothing but the stark white walls. No phone, no TV, no books, nothing to do, nothing to see, no one to talk to. It would be excruciatingly boring, like an asylum. So my job for this page was quite simple. Draw the room, draw the chair. Easy peasy. I wanted to make this one look sketchy and loose, so I started with my pencil sketch, then followed up with my method of using a thicker liner for the solid outline, and then the micron for the little sketchy detail lines. I'm not feeling too solid on the perspective of this one. I do think it's off, but whatever. The image comes across either way. Let's move it along and finish this whole thing off with the simple, boring phrase,
I'm bored.
Enough said. So that completes the page. There is not a whole lot to say about it. The mission was to create boredom, and this page is in fact boring. So Mission accomplished. Nothing profound happened here today. So on to the next prompt. Create doodles. Fill this page with mindless doodling. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear the word doodle, my mind goes back to school. Doodling is supposed to be mindless, just the scribbles made while your mind is focused elsewhere. And I feel like I haven't done that kind of drawing since high school. My drawings are all very deliberate and focused these days, believe it or not. But doodling is so fun, so I wanted to take this page right back to school, starting with the background. I tried to make the suggestion of wood. I didn't really focus a lot of time or energy into making it perfect because it's the background. Nobody cares about the background. But this is supposed to be my desk at school. When thinking about the tool that I used most often to doodle, it was definitely the classic Sharpie, so I had to add that to the spread. I just bought myself a cheap set of a bunch of fine tip acrylic paint pens, and I am obsessed with these guys. They're exactly the same style and quality of my Juicy highlight pens. I mean, look at that. One coat, full coverage. I'm going to use them more in this piece, and you'll see. I just can't get over them. I'll go ahead and link them in the description, and I think I need to do a video of like budget art supplies where I can really give them their due praise because I was shook when I got these. I was originally trying to keep the Sharpie very simple and basic without real shading, but I couldn't help myself. I had to spend entirely too much time trying to create the illusion that you could just pick this Sharpie up off the page. Okay, now I need to work this prompt, and this is where I get to dabble with more of these little paint pens. I chose to use a bunch of pastels, and you guys, I love these pens. Add a little drop shadow to those letters, and now let's get to the doodling. Now, doodling on the desk was strictly forbidden, but all of us rebels certainly got a couple in before being reprimanded by our teachers. Like the heart with you and your crush's initials, or this one. Remember this one? Of course you do. Or the classic, so-and-so was here, leaving your legacy behind. Now, I didn't want to go crazy doodling on the desk because in school, my place to doodle was absolutely the cover of my spiral notebooks. So on a separate sheet, I'm making this little notebook that'll go on the other page on the desk. Used watercolor to make it a pastel gradient. This is no standard notebook. This is some Lisa Frank bougie. Now it's time for more doodles. These aren't the typical doodles I would do when I was in school. I wanted this to be a collection of doodles that I would absolutely do now with my current interests. So right out of the gate, Death Head Moth. Then a little Ouija planchette. Then a melting skull ice cream cone, a burning candle, a heart but a brain at the same time, an eyeball bow. Oh, and I will be going back through with some fine details, so if these look unfinished right now, it's because they are. We're just laying down a base. Next, a bottle of poison, and a coffin, a crystal ball, a distressed little tore-up teddy bear, another eyeball, but this one with bat wings, a flying saucer UFO, and a melting popsicle with a voodoo doll-like face. Totally makes sense. Okay, now let's add some details. This is going to set these little guys off. Yeah, now it's all coming together. Add a few solid blacks here and there. Oh, let's add my little alien into the flying saucer. Hey, dude, he's doing Trekkie hands. Now I just want to completely overdo it and add an offensive amount of sparkles to all of the negative space of this notebook. But see, now the doodles are getting lost. So I decided to add a shadow to help each of them pop back out. And hey, nothing makes a drawing pop more than juicy highlight time. Oh yeah, love these. Now let's glue our notebook to the page. And as a fun last little detail, I use my silver gel pen to add a spiral to the notebook. I screwed up on a few of the rings, but you know what? I don't even care because I love this effect. And now this one's done. I love this little doodle page. I just had fun with this one all around. I loved using my new paint pens. I loved the nostalgic desk doodles. I loved making all of the little notebook doodles with a creepy style. I love the touch of pastels. I loved the fake notebook spiral effect. Like, I am here for this. And we've come to the last prompt of the week. Create a fantasy home. Design a home in, and you're supposed to write a fantasy location where this home can be found. Now, this will probably come as a surprise to absolutely none of you. But my fantasy home would be located in the Wizarding World, and it would be the Hogwarts Castle. So I just wanted to go ahead and paint a little scenescape of the castle against a cloudy night sky. Now, when I'm literally just trying to duplicate a reference picture, there's not really any special thoughts or ideas that come up in the process. So rather than narrate every single paint stroke, let's just do some relaxing background music instead. With the painting done, I just needed to go over the prompt so it's actually readable. And I wrote the Wizarding World for my location in silver gel pen. It was very hard to see, so I have to fix that. But moving forward, I wrote Hogwarts in the same gel pen using that classic Harry Potter font. Then I went back and covered that lettering in thick black. Now, while that dried, I looked at it and felt like the whole castle was just a little too light and bright. So I watered down some black acrylic to make kind of a transparent wash and covered everything in it. That's looking a little bit better. Then I went in and rewrote the Wizarding World. Why can't I say that right? The Wizarding World. I rewrote it in silver, but now the black behind it makes it easier to read. And with that, this one's done. I do really like it. Architecture is a little bit of a weak spot for me, so this painting was definitely not without its challenges. That being said, I feel like it conveys what I want it to convey. And the Harry Potter nostalgia never loses its magic with me. This is a fantasy home for sure. And just like that, another week down. We created obscure shapes, doing another Pinterest-inspired Zentangle with some very unrecognizable blobby splats. Then we cheated a little and added a very recognizable, crazy-eyed little space cat, just to give the page a little something extra. I love him so much. We created Boredom with this very boring, empty white room with only a lonely, boring chair in it. I imagine being in this room would be incredibly boring. I mean, even just looking at it is boring. So there's that. We created Doodles. I mindlessly doodled a bunch of creepy little drawings onto a little faux notebook, sat atop a school desk with a few more little Sharpie drawings that brought back some memories of my days mindlessly doodling in school. I love this page. And lastly, we created a fantasy home. My home, of course, was the Hogwarts Castle, located in the Wizarding World. Painting architecture with acrylic was a bit of a challenge, but I had fun with this one, and I think it came out pretty all right. I had a lot of fun this week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye!